So, in case anyone doesn't know, which I think you'd have to almost be living under a rock at this point, there was a fire in an escape room in Poland, and 5 15-year-old girls died as a result. And the reason we're subjecting this as Poland fire aftermath is because there's been like sweeping legislation worldwide that has resulted in escape rooms shutting down.
There legislation and enforcement of legislation that was already there.
Majorly enforcement of legislation, yeah.
Which,
that's a big part.
which is again part of an evolution of an industry is having to put those things into place, and unfortunately, sometimes it takes a tragedy to set things right.
Well, even when we were opening Witch Hunt, the big thing that all the inspectors were throwing at us was the fire at Great Adventure.
Yeah.
Back in, I guess, was it the 70s or the 80s?
They're super aware of that.
They're aware of it, but like in another sense, like they aren't aware of it because all the people coming to inspect us and stuff were totally clueless as to what we were. You know,
especially at the time.
Like the concept of an escape room to a lot of people is still this foreign concept. I mean, and that's not just like an age thing too. There are people my age, I'm 30, who don't know what escape rooms are. There are people who are significantly older than me who don't know what an escape room is, and there are people younger than me who don't know what an escape room is. So to assume that these bureaucrat kind of people would know what an escape room is when doing all of these kind of inspections would be it's kind of an error on their part. But
it's like something you can compare it to is like the sinking of the Titanic. After the Titanic went down, new laws were put into place to make sure that there were enough lifeboats for everyone on the ship, which you would think would be like an obvious thing, but it wasn't. Until an unfortunate tragedy made them have to change the laws, and it's sad that that's the way it has to go.
Some of these accidents just like really, I mean, not to demean them or undermine them, but some of these deaths were caused by like there's really stupid things in the first place. I think the fire in Poland was space heaters, right? That just kept them plugged in.
Well, I mean, ultimately there was also an issue of like the final puzzle of the game was to find the doorknob and reinstall it. I mean,
there was they started with a doorknob missing.
Yeah, to a degree, this industry was Wild West, and there was really, like you said, nobody really knew what it was, and nobody, so like they'd come out to inspect. They don't. It's either are you corporate team building or are you a haunted house? Like where does this fall? And to a degree, it's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of those. It's a little bit of a theme park ride. I mean, we have things that. Not just us. I've played in other places where there's motion sensor stuff where like doors will pop or things like that. You could get in the way of and get hurt. The amount of force that sometimes these panels drop with and come down with. They could take a finger.
That's not to say that escape rooms are dangerous. Don't think we're saying that.
You get hit in the face with a line drive down the first baseline at a baseball game. So I mean, baseball game's dangerous.
I'm not about to go after any particular company in a podcast video, but like for example, we've heard a story a million times of someone being in a buried alive game in a coffin and being trapped in there while the person that was game mastering basically went on a smoke break, and had a panic attack.
Yeah, well. That's a case of
the
you
customer,
should know what you're in
not
for.
the.
I mean, if you should know that you're going into a game that's going to constrict you like that.
Yeah, but like, are you in a? This is becoming mass market now.
Right. But yes, regulations have to be put on it. Yes.
Made this way more mass market. Now we've got we talk about this all the time behind the scenes. There's constantly kids calling now to play.
Yeah.
Our first year of business, it was like you get a birthday party once in a blue moon. This was all 30 and up.
Yeah.
And now it's it's a totally different ballpark.
Yeah.
So now when you've got kids coming in, although I shouldn't give the adults that much credit, but you would think that the kids are not going to be as logical about getting themselves out of a dangerous situation than an adult would. Although on the same token, I had somebody that came into Curzy over the weekend that literally, after completely purchasing, goes, "Okay, so what is this?"
Well, that's, you know,
$700 later.
yeah, not to knock, you know, all of our clientele, but that happens. I feel
More than it should.
I think that's just like a big retail problem for these kind of like boutique things.
Yeah.
Because I worked at a camera company, and you know, someone would, you know, drop like $2,500 on a new camera, and then they would call and say, "What can it do?"
Right.
You know, so I mean, like, I
Right.
wish I could have that kind of money to, you know, arbitrarily drop on stuff that I know nothing about. But
Well, I know a lot of parents do book a party based on their kids saying this is what I want to do,
Oh, sure.
and they don't know what it is.
Sure. No, this was an
The
adult
parents
party.
doesn't know. Oh, it's an adult party. Okay.
But, you know, I mean, this is, now, we've seen, I believe, over 30-something escape rooms have closed. Just our area. You know, like, tri-state area alone.
what were the reasons for that?
Well, fire code.
Fire code, mostly. You know, and I know there's a movement now towards eliminating the push stops.
Right.
Because, you know, everybody's go-to, we've never used them whatsoever. Because we've never locked anyone
Yeah, we've
in.
never actually locked anyone in.
But the go-to of the companies that would maglock the doors was, you know, well, we've got these push press buttons. That button gets pressed, anyone could get out, and no issue. But as we've all joked about in the past, I've been in a fire, and there's no way that I'm finding that push button in the smoke.
Right.
Those rooms engulf like that. So there's no getting around it. There's just nothing you can do about it. So those push buttons are not useful. You're putting people in a room that have literally no idea where they are. They've never been here before. They don't know the layout. So even if you're a one-room game, it's not, you know, it's not going to help.
Yeah, and we made that decision early on that we weren't going to lock people in, and we weren't going to do that because it also takes away the immersion of what we were trying to do.
So if anybody's watching that owns an escape room or works at an escape room, is there measures you have taken since the fire in Poland to, you know, kind of reformat and refigure out the way you're doing business? By all means, comment below. That's something I would love to hear. And kind of see the direction.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because, you know, we used to get pushback for not locking the doors.
Yeah,
It's true.
People would ask, you know, what's the point then if the door doesn't lock? Because we would tell people that we don't lock the doors, and they would.
Well, then it's not an escape
Yeah,
room.
yeah.
Well,
So-
do you like your life?
Yes. So now we can pretty much just say, you know, do you want to die?
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, it's a really weird industry to be a part of because, you know, dealing with public perception of these things and how it varies is very unique.
People love floating on that line of danger.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you know, that's kind of part of why they're here.
Right.
You know,
But there's that ignorance factor too that they still, despite maybe being aware of what an escape room is, they still don't know what an escape room actually is. So there's, you know, we got all these pushback for things that seem, you know, that to them seem arbitrary, but for us have, you know, larger repercussions if we don't do it.
We've given it a lot more thought than they have.
You know, it's like, you know, putting, you know, fire escapes in movie theaters. You know, someone yells fire, everyone's going to panic. You know, we have to take those similar precautions, and it's unfortunately, given the theater aspect of our industry, we have to make sure you don't die while playing our games.
right.
So I mean, you know, you're disappointed that the door is locked. Well, I'm sorry, but, you know, people have died as a result of this before.
Not
so, I mean,
here.
No,
not
yes.
at Trapdoor. No one has died.
industry wide. So I mean, you know, it's one of those things we need to kind of remind people of, and I'm also, you know, half curious to know what kind of repercussions that's going to have, you know, with the audience.
Yeah, and that's,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, actually, I'd probably factor that, you know, most of our audience is going to be our players. So, you know, I'm not ignorant to the fact that I'm sure our players play at other escape rooms. You know, has this impacted the way you go about booking your games? Has this impacted the way you play the games? Or, you know, if you walk into a facility, are you asking questions now about the current setup and situation, and what happens if there's a fire? I mean, I had said, you know, just earlier in the conversation, has anything changed as a result? I know for us, there's been an implement of a little bit of just, depending upon location, it's a little different too. But like in the Poconos location, every game starts now with this is where the fire exits are, and this is, you're always within 15 feet of a fire exit and so forth. And then the rules and the briefing stuff, just so that this way people feel a little bit more at ease. And most of the time they're blowing us off and they're not listening anyway. But
if there were an emergency, they would probably
right.
There's a better chance that they're going to remember it than not telling them, of course.
And here in Morristown, we have the emergency exits, and people just think they're part of the game when they walk out. So
So yeah, we've started emphasizing the emergency exits more, and we have gotten a lot more questions about, are the doors locked, and we are sure to tell them that they're not actually
locked. Or they'll
locked.
just use the fire extinguishers as part of the game.
That has happened too.
In F5, our tornado escape game, we've had people repeatedly walk out the emergency exit, and it makes the little ringing noise every time the door opens because it's a security alarm, and then
even though it's clearly labeled emergency
there's a big sign right there.
100%.
I think Chris and I were game mastering a game, and we kept hearing that ringing, and all of a sudden, all the players in the game were gone because they all went upstairs. And out the emergency exit, so they were outside of our building.
Well, at least they were safe.
Yeah, they were safe. But I mean, they thought they were supposed to do that.
Yeah.
So I mean,
if anyone, like I said, has any thoughts on this, by all means, comment below. We'd love to get your thoughts, and maybe we can make it a viewer question and talk about again at a later point. I really want to stay kind of in this topic for future episodes and kind of see how this evolves, because obviously it affects everyone. A lot of inspections have happened since, as a result, like spot checks. And, we already were fully inspected in our Red Bank location and passed with flying colors. So you're safe with Trapdoor. Now, from going from fires in buildings to fires under your ass.